This is the Naked Englishman. Well, I was going to say podcast. It's it's a video, isn't it? It's not really a podcast. Although I do a podcast called the Naked Englishman Podcast, I have not put anything on this channel since 2017 when I was looking earlier, and I thought this is a bit of an experiment really, because I'm thinking of doing this a little bit more regularly, so I may well get round to doing this. I don't know how many people are subscribed to this, who they are anymore. It's been so long, and I'll be amazed if anybody looks at this and even watches it. It would be fascinating. So, I'm Richard Vobes. I run a number of YouTube channels, and I am assuming that people who watch this will know who I am because they have seen stuff and they've subscribed to it. I can't imagine anybody who's not subscribed will get this in their feed, this video. I imagine it all takes forever to sort of pop up. I do a podcast. I've been doing a podcast since 2006 called The Naked Englishman. And over those years I experimented by doing bits of video, and I think clearly I didn't think it was worth carrying on with the video and putting it on YouTube. I kept it as a podcast because it was very simple. The idea of the podcast is it's just raw, it's nothing fancy, it's just me. It's very vloggy, I guess, as a podcast. There's no music intro and no sound effects, no bumpers, no sweepers on the audio podcast like so many podcasts you get, or we're getting. It was just a very raw thing. Switch the microphone on and away you go. And now here we are in 2022 on the 23rd of September with a new king on the throne, a new prime minister in Great Britain, and the beginning of a new season here in August, and it's raining outside, and we've had a very lovely summer, very productive summer for me, and I've been doing lots of different things on my other channels. And then I thought, I wonder if it's worth doing some of my, or all of my Naked Englishman, transposing it from a audio thing, which very few people really listen to, and whether it's worth trying to build up an audience and then monetize it. This channel's not monetized, so if you see the adverts, I don't get any of that revenue, by the way. And if the autofocus goes in and out, that's because the light in here is pretty poor. I haven't, again, this is going to be quite raw. At the moment I'm using the microphone on the top of the camera, which is not the best because I'm a bit far from it, and one of the things about the Naked Englishman podcast that I like is I just record it and then upload it, and I don't faff about processing and all of that. So this is going to just go up from this file, so if you find it a bit quiet, I apologise for that at this stage. I hope that I can sort this out. I want to try and get a process in which I can be raw but without having to spend time faffing about. Now, I used to run something called The Vobe Show, and we built a studio and there was a set microphone and I recorded it to the computer. And I did think about doing that today for this, but I didn't want that to be in the studio with all the lights and everything. I wanted this to be an example, if you like, of what the potential thing would be. But the technical aspect of it was I just switched it on, recorded it and then uploaded it and forgot about it. And in many ways with the Naked Englishman, I sort of want to be able to do that. I also want to be able to strip the audio and put it into a podcast, so those people who just like listening to audio don't have to actually bother to tune into YouTube and watch it. But I'm hoping that by putting it on YouTube it might gain a slightly bigger audience. So you might ask yourself, and I'm asking myself this same question, why does anybody want to share their life? Why does anyone want to sort of reveal stuff about them? And this is what the Naked Englishman does. And for me, the reason I've been doing this as a daily thing pretty much since 2005, the Vogue Show started as a podcast in 2005. The Naked Englishman, a year later, it began 2006. And I found very quickly that it wasn't so much because I've got a big ego, and to a degree, of course, anybody who puts themselves out has got a big ego, and yes, I'm an entertainer, so part of being an entertainer is you've got to have an ego enough to put your head over the parapet and try and entertain. So yes, there's an element of that, of course. I've always wanted to play with tape recorders and film myself and all of that. I can't explain that. That might be vanity, it might be ego, it might be that I feel I've got something to offer the world and probably haven't. And as you get older and more mature, you start to realise that actually you're not who you think you are, and I'm, learnt that. But the biggest thing, and regular listeners to the Naked Englishman podcast will know that I say this quite a lot. I'm like the BBC there, full of repeats, that it's very cathartic. It's like counselling, it's like talking to somebody. And since the 2005, so nearly 20 years, which is quite astonishing, is I went through personal relationship breakups, the trauma of losing my eye, which took over 4 years, various transplants of corneas and various things, a terrible period of pain and semi-blindness, and trying to bring up the kids single-handedly at that point. And also then my son, when he was 18, funnily enough on my 50th birthday, collapsing and nearly dying of a brain hemorrhage, and it was touch and go. And all of these were talked about during the podcast. And then the period of looking after my dad, who suffered from dementia, and of course the ongoing story of my mother, who was an alcoholic. So a lot of personal stuff I've shared or I've spoken about, and the thing about that is it's been cathartic. It's like counselling. It's been useful to be able to express how I feel, or just even relate the events, because it sort of clears it out of my head. Sometimes I'm recording this and I'm in a down situation, feeling miserable because things haven't worked out. I feel that I've been unsuccessful or whatever. You talk it through, I release it to the world, and then, remarkably, I feel like I've lifted a huge weight. And people will get in touch and say, Richard, are you all right? And I go, yeah, what do you mean? They said, well, you were sounding so down in the podcast. Oh, yes, that's because I've offloaded it and it's no longer on my mind, and suddenly I'm feeling a hell of a lot better. So that, to me, has been extremely valuable, having this. So I never feel I don't have that many close friends that I talk to on a daily, weekly basis. I don't go to the pub and meet up with people. I have a lot of friends online, what do you call them, friends, acquaintances, people I chat to perhaps on WhatsApp, which are more like friends, but they just don't see them. They're like they're in the room. And of course now I've got a beautiful lady called Julia, who is my girlfriend, and she's going through a divorce, and we have aspirations to live together in the future. She has her own children, and life has got lots of potential, and I'm battling to make the YouTube channels that I run, the two ones that I run, the what used to be the Vogue Show and is now called Unusual Tales, and of course what used to be is Richard Vogue's, and was the Bald Explorer, but that's changing, and it's now called Made in England. Well, it's Richard Vogue's Made in England, looking at stuff that's made in England and all of that. So I'm battling to get those done and see where it goes, really, see where it takes me. But anyway, there we go. That's what I'm attempting to do. I guess the video It's interesting because the audio version would go on for ages, but the video version I really only want to make last 10 minutes, I suppose, because otherwise it takes bloody ever to upload. So I've noticed that I've just crossed the 10-minute point. So I'm going to leave that here because this is just an experiment to see if it's worth me putting it onto YouTube. And if anybody sees this pop up and maybe makes a note in the comments, I think in the future the comments will be switched off, but this one I will leave purely to know if anyone's seen any of the others and whether they've been long-term viewers, whether they've moved on, no longer find me interesting and all of that, and it's popped up and surprised them. And if it has, then that's great. If it hasn't, so be it. And we'll see. And as an experiment, I just want to see where this goes. So thanks for watching, and if I do continue this, hopefully see you on the next one. And this is so raw that you'll see me turn it on and turn it off. Goodbye.